FIFA just backed down. After a massive public backlash, including a sitting prime minister calling them out on live radio, the governing body reversed course on one of the most tone-deaf policies we've seen ahead of a major tournament. That's the story everyone's talking about today, but we've also got a huge Messi fitness update that every Argentina fan needs to hear, a weather situation in Texas that's raising real questions about this World Cup, and the logistical nightmare facing England players who want to get their summer transfers done while Tuchel's squad is still competing. A lot to get through. Let's get into it. The 2026 World Cup is just days away, and the pre-tournament drama is already in full swing. Between FIFA making questionable decisions, Messi's injury timeline, and storm warnings in Texas, there's plenty to break down. Here's everything you need to know heading into what should be an absolutely massive summer of football. England's transfer window nightmare. Tuchel's rules are creating real problems. Let's kick things off with something that's going to affect some of the biggest transfer stories of the summer. Thomas Tuchel has confirmed that England players won't be under a blanket transfer ban during the World Cup, which sounds reasonable on the surface. But when you actually look at the schedule, the reality is way more complicated than that. Tuchel's position is essentially this. He's not going to stop his players from doing deals, but he's also not going to give them time off to complete medicals in the middle of a tournament. No player gets pulled from preparation in the 2 days before a match, and realistically, nobody's doing a full transfer medical the morning after playing 90 minutes in the North American heat either. So when does that actually leave a window? When you map out England's full schedule, assuming they top the group and go deep, there are basically 2 realistic days in the entire tournament where a player could complete a medical, meet with their buying club, agree terms, and sign a contract. We're talking June 19th or 20th. That's it. Maybe one day before the squad even flies out to Kansas City. Now think about who we're talking about here. Elliot Anderson, Marcus Rashford, John Stones, Morgan Rogers. These are central players for Tuchel. He's not resting any of them just so they can be fresher for a medical the next morning. And if a club is spending north of £100 million on someone, potentially breaking Declan Rice's British record fee, they're not skipping the full physical workup. The bottom line, unless a deal is effectively already done before the tournament starts, most of these moves are getting pushed to after England's World Cup is over. Tuchel has actually been more flexible than Southgate ever was. Southgate had a strict ban, but the schedule simply doesn't cooperate. Buying clubs are going to need patience this summer. Lightning strikes and heat warnings. Is the World Cup ready for its own weather? Here's a story that doesn't get talked about enough, and it probably should. Saudi Arabia's pre-World Cup warm-up against Puerto Rico in Austin, Texas, had to be stopped for nearly 2 hours in the 21st minute. Not because of a tactical substitution, because of thunderstorms and lightning strikes. Players were pulled off the pitch, fans were told to seek shelter, and the countdown clock kept resetting every time lightning struck within 8 miles of the stadium. The rule is a 30-minute reset each time that happens, which is why the delay stretched so long. Saudi Arabia eventually won 3-0, but that's almost beside the point. Here's why this matters beyond one warm-up game. The World Cup is taking place right at the peak of thunderstorm season in several of the host cities. The Q2 Stadium in Austin isn't actually a World Cup venue, but Houston, which is hosting 7 matches, and Dallas, hosting 9 matches, including England versus Croatia, absolutely are. We've already seen what this looked like at last year's Club World Cup, when Chelsea's last 16 tie against Benfica in Charlotte ran for 4 hours and 39 minutes because of repeated lightning stoppages. And it's not just storms. Researchers have flagged that temperatures at 14 of the 16 World Cup stadiums could exceed dangerous levels during the tournament. Which, when you think about it, makes the water bottle controversy, which we'll get to in a second, feel even more significant. This is a real operational challenge for FIFA and the host cities, and fans traveling to Texas this summer should be prepared for potential weather delays. Messi is back, training with the group. Argentina breathe a sigh of relief. Alright, now the biggest story of the day, and honestly, one of the most important storylines of this entire World Cup, Lionel Messi's fitness. A couple of weeks ago, Messi was subbed off during Inter Miami's MLS win over Philadelphia Union with what was described as muscle fatigue. The word precautionary was used, but let's be real. When you're talking about a 38-year-old going into what will almost certainly be his final World Cup, even the word precautionary sends a shockwave through the football world. Well, Argentina manager Lionel Scaloni has given fans some very good news. Messi is no longer training alone. He's back working with the group, at least for part of sessions, and Scaloni says he's progressing well and could feature in Argentina's upcoming friendlies against Honduras and Iceland. The exact quote was, "He is doing much better, and that gives us peace of mind." That's a manager who looked genuinely relieved. Scaloni also gave a nice little insight into how Messi's World Cup call-up actually went down. Rather than making a public announcement or drawing attention to whether he'd be included, Messi simply told his manager he'd wait to be called up like any other player. That kind of humility from the greatest player of all time, even now, says a lot. Argentina opened their World Cup campaign against Algeria in Kansas City on June 17th, with games against Austria and Jordan to follow in the group stage. In Qatar 4 years ago, Messi played every single minute of all 7 games, scored 7 goals, and lifted the trophy. The question now is whether Scaloni manages his workload more carefully in a tournament with more matches. 48 teams means the path to the final is longer this time. One more injury note from Argentina's camp. Both Julian Alvarez and Leandro Paredes arrived with minor injury concerns. Scaloni says things are improving, and neither will feature in the Honduras friendly, but there's a chance one of them could play in the second warm-up. Definitely worth monitoring. FIFA's water bottle U-turn. The backlash worked. And now for the story that had football fans, scientists, and a sitting head of government all agreeing on something, which honestly doesn't happen that often. FIFA has backed down on their water bottle ban. Here's the quick recap. Earlier this week, FIFA updated their fan policy to say that reusable water bottles were no longer permitted in World Cup stadiums. Previously, fans had been allowed to bring in one empty, transparent, reusable bottle up to a liter. That was stripped away. The stated reason was safety and security. The backlash was immediate and pretty fierce. Fan groups pushed back hard. Scientists and health experts raised genuine concerns about fans sitting in extreme heat without adequate hydration. And then UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer went on LBC radio and called it out directly. His words, "It's just wrong, and I can't help but think it's about making money." He also pointed out the obvious. You can't bring a water bottle in, but you can buy one inside the stadium for a premium price. FIFA has now partially reversed the ban. The current policy allows every fan to bring in one soft, factory-sealed, 590-milliliter plastic bottle per match in the US and Canada venues. Hard-sided resealable containers are still banned. FIFA's COO cited safety and security risks for that restriction, which is a bit more understandable. It's a partial win for fans, but the underlying issue hasn't fully gone away. In the North American summer heat, 590 milliliters is not a lot of water for a full match experience. And the fact that FIFA changed the policy multiple times in the same week doesn't exactly inspire confidence in how organized the off-field operations are heading into this tournament. World Cup 2026 tickets. What you need to know if you're still trying to go. Quick but useful one to close out the main stories. If you haven't sorted World Cup tickets yet and you're still hoping to go, you're not completely out of options, but you need to know how the resale system works. FIFA's official resale marketplace is live at fifa.com/tickets and stays open until 1 hour before each match kicks off. That's your safest and most reliable route. For Mexico residents, there's a separate platform, the Mercado de Intercambio, where tickets can only be resold at face value, no markup allowed. Third-party platforms like StubHub do have availability, but prices on secondary markets can be heavily inflated and the risks are higher. The key thing if you go that route, make sure the seller transfers the ticket directly into your FIFA account using the official FIFA ticket transfer system. If they're not doing it that way, walk away. As for prices, we're talking a pretty wide range. Group stage games can start around $60 for the cheapest categories, but host nation matches like USA, Canada, or Mexico can run up to $2,700 for the best seats. And if you're dreaming of the final at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, You're looking at anywhere from $2,000 to nearly $11,000 a ticket. So, yeah, start saving. So to wrap it up, FIFA blinked on the water bottle ban, which is a win for common sense. But the broader concerns about heat and fan welfare at this tournament haven't gone away. Messi looks like he's on track, and that's genuinely great news for anyone who wants to see him get a proper send-off on the biggest stage. England's transfer situation is messier than it sounds. The window is basically 2 days, and the weather in Texas is already proving to be a real factor that could affect matches throughout the summer. The World Cup is less than a week away. It's going to be chaotic, dramatic, and absolutely unmissable. Thanks for watching Football Wire. If you enjoyed the breakdown, make sure to subscribe for more daily football news.